Yeah, guys, it's got me thinking. We're always talking about how Super Bowl teams have a number one pass catcher, and most of the time we go to the number one wide receiver for that, rightfully so. But if you think about the dynasties of late, the New England Patriots, the Kansas City Chiefs, their number one pass catcher has been their tight end, Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce. Now, I know those are two of the best tight ends in NFL history, so a little tough to actually compare to those guys. But it got me thinking, I do believe the Packers need to pursue a number one wide receiver. But it also got me wondering, are we undervaluing Tucker Kraft and his ability to be that guy, to maybe be and emerge as the number one pass catcher that the Packers need? Because what he did last year was sensational. I mean, he had moments where he was the guy of the game. Not only, now hold on, Ben.
It's the word moment that gets me every time.
Yeah, but he's only his second year, right? I mean, I pulled up Travis Kelce's stats from his second year, and that's when he turned it on, was basically starting in Travis Kelce's second year and then honestly never looking back. He got 860 yards, 5 touchdowns. Third year, same thing, 800, and he's been like 1,000 yards ever since. Tucker Kraft sharing, I guess Musgrave was out, but 700 yards, 7 touchdowns. I mean, he was a guy that was impactful, not only blocking for sure, but in the passing game. You could tell that he became a weapon, a guy that the defenses wanted to highlight pretty often. So, yes, was he consistently the best offensive player on the field or best guy in consistently for the Packers game plan? No, he was not. But there were moments, there were games where you looked at him and said, this guy has the capability to be a top 5 tight end in the NFL. I think if you see another even small step forward from Tucker Kraft and you continue to allow the offense to be built around his skill set, next year he could be a top 5 tight end in the NFL and he could emerge as your number one pass catcher. So I
don't disagree with anything you're saying.
Yeah.
But are you saying, is this as a contingency plan? Are we trying to make ourselves feel better if nothing actually happens?
That could be part of it.
Is this why you're going here right now? Because that's why I'm asking the question of, I agree with a lot of the Tucker Kraft optimism. I love the way he plays the game of football. He is everything you could ask for in a tight end. He blocks. He can catch. He can run guys over. He's the ultimate team player. Even the way he talked about the way the season ended, you can tell that man cares. And that's someone you want in your locker room and representing your football team day in and day out. But if you're just doing this because you're starting to not believe the Packers are going to bring in a number one wide receiver, then we're just going back to just, it's fine just doing it the Goody way and growing young and growing together. No. You say the word urgency and championship together, I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm going to do the same thing I wanted the wide receiver room to do. They all had moments. All right, is this going to happen? There is some evidence that he's probably on a better path to make a bigger jump than any of the wide receivers based on the data points that we have consistently with production from him versus the disappearing act of Jaden Reed, the drops of Dontavian Wicks, and the unreliability of Romeo Doubs. Unless he's on the field, he's very reliable. But I don't know. I just him having moments is enough for be yep, Tucker Kraft with that wide receiver room, they're ready to go.
Before you jump in, Kyle, just to respond to that, it's partially that because I look at Devontae, I look at DK, and look, before free agency starts and before these guys start to sign, there's a bit of intrigue, there's excitement, but reality sets in and I wonder, we might not get those guys. If we run it back, so to speak, with the guys we have, who's most likely to take that step forward? And I dug deeper into Tucker Kraft. He had a better season than I anticipated. He had those unbelievable moments that jumped out in my head. But listen to these stats. Okay, so he was 18th in receptions for tight ends. Not great, but it reflects the big play capability because, guys, he was 7th in yards and 4th in touchdowns amongst tight ends. So he's a guy that in the important stats, yards and touchdowns.
14 yards a catch.
That's right, 14 yards a catch. So he has a big play ability. You incorporate him more into the game plan, he might be able to be that guy. Now, I'd prefer that he is a number one tight end and you have a number one wide receiver, but in case there's that void of a true number one wide receiver, he might be your best option to have that number one pass catcher.
See, I think what you're saying is he may be your best option, but if he is your best option next year, and I believe Tucker Kraft is going to have a breakout year next year. This year was good, but next year we're going to find out that he's a stud, he's legit. You're not a Super Bowl team. Like if Tucker Kraft's your guy, because he's not a Travis Kelce, he's not a Rob Gronkowski, he's not that Tony Gonzalez. He ain't in that same hemisphere of talent, but he is a very good number one tight end, and he's going to prove that next year. But for the Green Bay Packers, if you're depending on him to be your number one threat next year, then we're in trouble, right? And I think if he gets
that's all
more
I was
targets,
getting to.
he will.
So
produce,
if he's a George Kittle, you don't think it's enough?
No.
No.
It's not even enough for the Niners with all the weapons they have around him.
I mean, that's fair.
So again, the Green Bay Packers need to find somebody else. I agree with you, Brad. I think he is really good. I think the Green Bay Packers, and y'all know I love me some Luke Musgrave. I think the Green Bay Packers have a very good tight end room if Luke Musgrave can get healthy. You add him and Tucker Kraft together, you're doing well. But you got to solve it at the receiving position. That's the biggest issue that I have right now. You need to have a number one guy. You got a number one guy as a tight end, not as a pass catcher. You got a number one tight end. Now you need to find a number one wide receiver because Tucker Kraft is not that type of guy.
Well, that depresses me. Because,
It shouldn't depress you.
It shouldn't depress you. This is just it's just unrealistic to be like, yeah, let's put all of our fate in Tucker Kraft being that main weapon for us to go deeper in the playoffs.
Well, I think he's the best possibility to be that guy. But
Jaden Reed still?
Just say you're working on the
Jaden Reed top drops. I mean, he had, I think, like third highest drops in the NFL last year. I love Jaden Reed.
I love Jaden Reed.
He was more inconsistent than Tucker Kraft last year, sure.
He has some growing pains. He definitely has some growing pains. I still have faith in the guy that. Again,
Yeah, me too. I mean,
no
I
one's
think,
saying we don't have faith in Jaden Reed.
I think
the skill set is there.
If you get this all goes back to putting the puzzle pieces together. Because you're right. You convinced me. If Tucker Kraft is your number one guy, you're not.
Let's look towards 2026, wherever that is. Or I guess 27 Super Bowl, which would wherever Santa Clara is in 26 would be 27. Where? Anyone know?
Don't know. Don't pay attention.
You know what? Let's focus on Santa Clara. Don't even look it up. I don't want to know, Strofe. I don't want to know until Santa Clara is over where the next one is.
If Jaden Reed's
It's
your
in
number,
Los Angeles.
if Jaden Reed's your number 2, and Tucker Kraft is a top 5 tight end, and you've got Devontae Adams, now you're cooking.
And now
you're cooking.
That's why I've said this before. I believe if we were to go into the regular season, we were to run it back with the receiving room, I wouldn't be satisfied, but I do think there's going to be growth from this team. Like I do believe that Jaden Reed is going to have growth next season. I do believe Dontavian Wicks actually gets better, has less drops, and going to that third season. Remember, he was like a 5th-round pick. I think next year will be a big year from him. I don't know what to expect from Romeo Doubs. I know he's consistent, but I don't know what's going on inside his head, and we know that Watson is going to be out. But I do think that this receiver room takes the next step. You add a number one wide receiver, it makes them even better because it allows for them to have more opportunities because there's so much focus on a Devontae Adams, on a DK Metcalf. But number one makes everybody else's job that much better. I don't know if Jaden Reed's going to ever be a stud, a guy that's going to go for 1,300 receiving yards, but I am confident that he's going to crack 1,000 and he's going to be a nice threat for the Green Bay Packers for years to come.
So, Brad, are you putting your chips back in the Goody go do something basket after this conversation?
I'm still trying to hold on a little bit.
It's okay. It's okay.
I think I'm starting to, you know how you protect yourself, you protect your heart, you're out there, you're afraid to get hurt. I think that's what I'm doing right now.
I think at the end of the day, I'm fine that you brought this up because it's not a bad thing to talk about the potential of the young guys on the roster and the way they built the team. But in the conversation that Goody put out there of championship and urgency, this conversation doesn't align with 2025 being the championship urgency season if they don't make a move to bring in somebody in that wide receiver group to help Tucker Kraft be a big complement to somebody who's already established for Jordan Love. That's how I look at it at the end of the day.